welcome. So today I am going to be working on a card game. I have gotten on. Okay, that's distracting. This is my first time streaming on YouTube, so I'm still getting into it here. Put that down. That was distracting me a little bit there. So I have a project that I want to work on. I have gotten a little bit of time to work on this. So I have about a month to get this done. So I'm going to try and do this every day for a month. Well, not every day. Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Treat it like a job. And work on this card game and try and get a prototype out. There's several levels to this that I want to reach. Being starting with the conceptualization into a prototype, playing prototype. I want to get the prototype onto tabletop simulator where I can play it. I'll probably play test with some friends. I'm not sure if I'll live stream that or not. I don't think I'd be able to get that set up appropriately to live stream the playtesting parts as much as I would like to. But I got a couple friends that are willing to help playtest the game when it gets to that point, and see how that goes. Now this isn't necessarily like going and trying to be big. I just want to do this. It's kind of one of my bucket list things is to make and complete a game that plays. So today what I'm going to be doing is working on the rules, laying out what the game is. I haven't started. I kind of have a rough conceptualization of what I want the game to be, but I haven't really started writing that down. So today I want to do everything on stream for posterity, I guess, but more like a blog, a recording of the process, and working on this. The other thing is, this is my first time streaming on YouTube. I don't know if my sound balance is right and any of that. I won't be able to check till after the stream. The stream quality might be a little not where it needs to be, but I'll work on that. Every time I do a stream, I try and make it better. I don't stream a whole lot, but I try to keep improving every time I do. So, is there anything else here? Have to have chat in view. It's so. I wonder if I can pop that chat out. Ah, there we go. Because I don't want to sit and look at chat over here. I said, always on top. I'll have to figure that out later. So most of the work today will be done on Notepad. I'm gonna set up a timer. I'm gonna switch to that. Get ready to do that. We'll get a timer going, and we'll take breaks as we go along. So we're gonna do 1 hour intervals. There we go. And that doesn't like to behave. I wish I could have a centering tool. Maybe there's a plugin or something for that. So we got that going. I apologize if the music's too loud. I'll probably get quiet as I'm working. I might talk to myself a little bit. If you're working on any projects yourself, work along. And let's see how this goes. So I'm gonna move this over here. Pop up the notepad. Okay. So first and foremost, the game I'm trying to make is going to be I want it based off 7-card draw. So and Pokemon. So basically let's say parts of the game. We're gonna say each player, and we're gonna start with a rough conceptualization before I start getting to the rounds. Each player Has 4 monsters with stats on card on field before game starts. Format this a little better. I didn't want to download Windows, so I'm using Notepad++ here, mainly because it is kind of always on my computers. I don't have an Office program. I'm probably gonna have to get one. I use Google stuff, but I didn't want to load in browser stuff. They don't have standalone apps, so I can't really use that. So I'll have to work on that. Each player has 4 monsters with stats on cards. Each 4 monsters they're choosing with stats on the card. Each player brings a deck of brings an action with them to play the game. Arbitrarily, let's say 52 for now. There was a number depending on print, and that depends on how I'm gonna go, because I was trying to price it. I have done some preliminary looking and pricing per pack, not yeah. So it's kind of based off that. If it was gonna be print, most of this stuff will be available for print and play and whatever, making your own cards and stuff. So each player brings an action deck with them to play. Say possible something that I wanted to add to the game is people have tokens to ante on a round. So it's based on 7-card draw. I'll get to that in a little bit. But these are different parts of the game that I'm kind of laying out, and I think that's basically all there is. Idea or goal of the game is to knock out all of the opponents. Oh, I'm spelling that wrong, aren't I? This is gonna be I haven't spelled correctly in a long time, or haven't thought about it. I don't write all that much. Opponents, monsters out. Okay. So that's basically the idea. Idea for a round. Let's cap that. Yeah, for a round. So each player draws 7 cards. Those 7 cards take actions. Take instant actions. And then lay out a run of actions for the combat phase. Put tokens on creatures to increase the damage or defense, to increase the potency of actions taken at the cost of making them more vulnerable. So that's, we break this up. We got several phases already, so break this into a phase. This into a phase. That into a phase. And then we'll go down and make this a phase. And we'll call this the combat phase. Player flips. Run. And ending on speed of monsters and actions. Start playing through. So the idea, the rough idea for this, and this is just a rough idea. I'm roughing it out. I gotta get into a little more detail of it as I go on. Is that these combats, actions, and stuff happen kind of simultaneously. You're not taking turns. I mean, you are kind of taking turns. There is a little bit of a thing, but it's not really. So it's all based on the speed of the monsters and stuff, and not whatever. So you got to be able to, in each round, you got to be able to kind of make plays and make predictions on how fast, depending on the opponent's team, how fast. So it's simultaneous play instead of taking turns like most traditional TCGs and stuff are. So we are going to keep moving along here. And hopefully by the end of today, I got a pretty good, well-written thing. There's a lot I got to lay out today. Not probably going to start prototyping a lot of cards today, but we'll see where I get. Okay. Combat phase begins. So I'll need more information on the different cards, which I'll get into in this. I won't be able to write out the complete rules until I have the cards and the monsters and all that other stuff. So combat phase begins. It's added to monsters if a monster has more damage than their life. Remove them from the game. Delete them from existence. Okay. So we have that. And then we'll actually want to keep that one phase. So anything that's together is a phase. So I'm kind of breaking it up here. Use a symbol to break up the different phases. We'll go to cleanup. Each player discards remaining cards. Ready for the next round. Yep. Hey. Attack. Double guard into the graveyard as a shuffle discard. Yeah, because it's a discard pile. It's based off 7-card draw, so I want to keep that going. And I want it to be functionally unique. The shuffling idea, shuffling it back around, I'm taking from obviously like card games online and stuff. Not online. Video game roguelike card games where you run through and you have so many and then you gotta balance balance what you have. So one of the things of this deck is maybe running through your deck and trying to replay the same things over and over. So if you can, like in your instant actions and stuff, you can spend a bunch of those to draw more cards or replace cards or whatnot to burn through your deck and try and get better hands than you get set up, which does make card draw, like, you know, especially Magic the Gathering, card draw and stuff tends to be a really overpowered ability, because one, you're reducing the number of cards you need in a deck to have higher potency actions and just make sure you're doing the same thing you want to do. So I want to balance that just a little bit, or maybe make it not tied to certain things. There's a lot that I haven't figured out. This just kind of have the idea. Since it's monsters, I do want the rock paper scissors thing going. I've kind of started over here. This was for an older thing, laying out the elements or whatever, rock paper scissors, but I don't know if I'm going to stick with that. I was trying to do something new and unique, and it's always hard. You know, I could just stick with the regular elements that everybody kind of knows, you know, and just be done with it. I don't know. I haven't settled on that yet. So, yeah. Let's see. So that's a rough idea. Parts of the game. Let's since we're kind of writing faux rules, I'm gonna do caps lock was already on. Oh. So what I really want part of this is blind knowledge. You don't know. You're not making decisions based on what the other opponent has. So like when you set up this game, you have 4 monsters, and there's going to be a front row and a back row. But when you set it up, I don't want people to know the formation of their opponents. They should be setting up based on their team and what they're bringing to the table and what's best for their team. And maybe if you played with the opponent before, maybe trying to predict the way they're setting up there based on their formation, not necessarily on the cards they have. So each player plays 4 monsters face down on the field. Be placed in 2 rows up to 4 columns. So basically it can be set up 2 rows. Front row, takes no penalties and gets no bonus. The back row gets a defense bonus and attack 10. Which this doesn't need to be placed here. I probably comment that out. I know I'm not programming. That'll I'll tap that in too. So as long as the idea was there, get it down, and this will have to all get organized into a better setup. Just kind of trying to get it all out right now. Okay, so each player plays 4 monsters down on the field. They can be placed in 2 rows and up to 4 columns. And Each player brings a deck. Player pulls their deck and places it on the table. When both players have monsters in place, flip the monsters. So they don't stay hidden, they're only hidden on the setup. So you're not setting up based on your opponent. Nobody who gets aggressive and sets theirs up first, or somebody just wait, know how you're going to set up your monsters. It just avoids conflict. You set your monsters face down, you can't see them, no peeking, and then when you're ready to go, you flip the monsters. It avoids conflict, it avoids anything. I mean, you could do a back and forth and give the person who starts first disadvantage and then give them an advantage in drawing or something, but that's not the way I want to set up. I'd rather have it blind knowledge and avoid trying to balance the knowledge bonus that you'd be getting from that. Not saying that knowledge bonuses won't be part of the game, because the run is played face down as well, and you flip that in the thing. So simultaneously actions, you're taking actions based on the knowledge you have. There's a lot of hidden knowledge in this game. See how that goes. Anyway. Alright, so we got the setting up idea, a rough idea for a round. Alright. So to finish a game, concedes the game for a person, player, I should say. Keep it consistent. No more monsters on the field. So that kind of gives the rough idea of how I want the game to go. So basically, you take and have you have monsters that are not part of your deck. You can choose which monsters you get from a various set of monsters. They have all sorts of different abilities, or well, not abilities, stats. I haven't quite, and I'll get to that in a bit, I haven't quite figured out how I want abilities to go. So I'm just kind of roughing this out and working it out. Sometimes the ideas will go less as I did on paper. I'm going to see a lot of issues with this design as it goes on. That's just part of making something. You get an idea, you look at it, you try and put it together, and then stuff doesn't work. So you got to go back and make work, simplify, always simplify, get rid of ideas instead of adding ideas, but we'll get to that. So the game, each player brings 4 monsters each player plays 4 monsters face down on the field. They can be placed in 2 rows up to 4 columns. Front row takes no penalties and gets no bonus. The back row gets a defense bonus and an attack penalty. Each player shuffles their action deck and places it on the table. When both players have their monsters in place, flip the monsters. I should put out here a caveat. I'll just add it over here because I don't know where else to add it. If there are no monsters in the front row, the back row becomes the front. The best way to put that. Probably a little better wording. So if you have no monsters defending the monsters in the back, obviously your back row no longer gets the defensive bonus or the attack penalty. there's nothing in the way, and there's nobody blocking for them. When both players have their monsters in place, flip the monsters. So that's the setup of the game. That seems all well and good for the moment. So then we got the round. So when you start, each player draws 7 cards. They use those 7 cards to take instant actions, which I don't know. Maybe there's a better word for it. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. Right now, we'll call them instant actions, pre-combat phase actions. They're not abilities. They're going to be more of drawing on Pokemon a little too much. The trainer actions, for lack of better words. I got to think of what I'm going to call the player. I haven't even gotten into lore or anything like that, but they're like trainer actions, basically. And then you lay a run of combat actions on your field. So you get set up to do that, and then you'll take and you'll put potency tokens on your creatures to increase the potency of the abilities you're using. I'm going to call them ability actions. And then you get better potency from your actions, but you can make your creatures more vulnerable in the way. It's a balance. I don't know how this is a big part of what I want to be the game, but this is something that could make the game less fun or more confusing. So this is something that is very close to being cut out of the idea, just to make the game more smooth and less confusing, but it's something that I like and want to try. So it's in there for now. We'll just leave it in there. So, and then you begin the combat phase. Each player flips their run. Now, so each of the monsters will have their speed. The fastest speed, or the card on there, the ability card. Whoever's using that ability card. So you flip your cards and you be like, well, my Florgnog is going to be doing this, and the opponent's Grignor is using an ability there as well. Well, it depends on who's faster, the Florgnog or the Grignor, and that's how that'll play out. Then you choose targets and everything as that resolves at the speed there. So and that's one thing I don't have panned out. The original idea for the game was only one action per turn at the end of round. I don't think that flows, and moving away from 7-card draw a bit, but this game was initially trying to resolve a what do they call it? The mana issue with Magic the Gathering. You build a deck, you want all the cards to be useful, you run into situations where you can't play at all because you don't have the things you need, and it's the mana issue. So a lot of games, what they do is all your cards have something. Well, I was going to put a element and a number, and then you got to create suits and runs. It gets to a point where you can have higher ability spells with a royal flush or something like that. Basically a royal flush. You can do a lot of damage with that. But I haven't quite decided how I want to run the abilities. Whether you get so many action points per turn, whether you can build up action points through suited numbers, I'm not entirely sure yet. I'm still kind of toying with that. So this isn't necessarily all gonna stay. And then cleanup phase. I want people to dump their hands at the end of each round. Basically, if you don't use it, you lose it. and move on to the next one. So this game really shouldn't play like a lot of the other games out there. It's pretty unique, in that, you know, I'm not necessarily trying to copy. There's a lot of ideas that I'm taking inspiration from video games. Obviously, it takes a big influence from Pokemon, but it also takes inspiration from JRPGs and their combat systems and just all kinds of sorts of things. I've always liked games. So there's that. All right. So we got the parts of the game. So I want to move on to action cards. And I'll get to the makeup of the monster cards in a bit, but right now I'm gonna move on to action cards. So we got player actions, and we have your abilities. I want to do relics. Oh, that's not how you spell it. Relics. And I haven't fleshed out that idea yet. So, and I'm still in a toss-up. We'll see. I'm kind of, as I'm laying it out and looking at the idea, I'm probably moving around away from using cards as resources, in that you gotta create suits and stuff. Because most of the time people are going to be stuck with lower risk abilities, and there's going to be a lot of times where they like, well, I got high card and that's all I got, you know. So probably moving through that, but relics were supposed to be able to expand the monster's abilities, and they probably still will. Maybe they'll shore up speed or defense or something and be more like items from Pokemon. Something, I don't know, but I would like relics that change the game, that can be played. I would assume they would be played in the same phase as player actions, but maybe you need to set them up on the run. Maybe the entire game could be played on the run. So you set up so many actions and you set up your run, so you're playing ahead. And that idea actually comes from a game my sister really likes, Killer Bunnies, which is funny because you're always you got to play ahead. You're not playing at what's happening. You got to think ahead for the game, and that gets to be pretty fun. Except that game is chaotic as all heck. Yeah. If you're playing the game, you're just messing about. It's definitely an interesting game. So let's see here. We got player actions, monster abilities, relics, possible transformations, and this is something I've been debating about. So the Digimon card game back in the day, way back in the day, aging myself now, Pokemon, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh, all those have a thing where you're sacrificing your beginning monsters to have increase the game, basically to change the weight of the game. Oh, I got lucky, and it's exciting because now I got the big monster on the field, and I've turned the balance. I feel more powerful. That excitement for a player is great. But in this, they're dead cards, which goes again to the resource issue. If I'm using them as suits and I'm using them as resource, they're not dead cards because you have four in a deck, whatever, for the transformation, which would seem like a lot of 52 card deck, but to make your monster stronger and hit your upgrade. I don't know if I don't want to call it evolution. Your transformation. Hit your transformation card to get to the next level. That's a possibility. It's something I might play test out. I'm probably not going to start. It depends if I have trouble setting it up. And this is the difficulty, because now that I'm writing it down, I've been thinking about this for about 3 weeks now, waiting for, and I haven't written anything down because I wanted to get to this, all the struggles and everything, get it recorded, get it on screen for posterity. So I haven't written anything down. So I'm kind of like, oh, now I'm finalizing it, and it's like, oh, all these ideas don't start to see all the problems in the ideas as I write it down. So possibly having transformation. So we got player actions, monster's ability, relics, I mean, could set up trap cards. There has to be a way to interact with your opponent, and that gets to be the question: interacting with your opponent. Otherwise, you're playing a game of solitaire, and that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do a lot of hidden knowledge. So you don't know what your opponent's gonna do until they do it, and trying to keep that on the strategy and trying to keep focused. But I don't want to make a game of solitaire. So we can break that down to player actions. Player actions. Let's do. Just knock this out, because I don't, just because I'm thinking about interaction right now, I'm gonna get some of the ideas that just crossed my mind. So we are going to say that we can knock abilities. Oh, that's knock abilities off run, so basically counterspell. We could reveal cards on run. When I say run, I mean like the cards you set up to be played. So you're playing ahead. That's the run of cards that you're going to be playing. So you can knock abilities off run, reveal cards on run. Oh, how else can you interact? So basically, all I can think about is revealing knowledge and stopping, because you're interacting with the monsters, but the more I take for player actions alone, so I'm Um, uh, so we got filtering, which, like I said, they're really overpowered at being able to draw cards and get through your deck. It just stabilizes so much. You can't, if you have draws and you have searches, you cannot build a deck without them in any card game ever, or any trading card game. You really need to be able to draw. If your opponent's drawing and filtering their cards, you just absolutely need to, unless you're going in all on aggro. But so those are the type of movements. Monster abilities. There will be no draw on monster abilities because after the combat phase or run, you're discarding all your cards. Well, maybe now that I'm fleshing it out, you're not, but we'll see. I still like the idea of playing it out, playing your hand, and playing that round, taking actions. The problem becomes if one person just piles up a bunch of actions, you're using the whole thing, and you're ending up with resource issues. Like, say you have all player actions and they have all monster abilities, and your monsters are taking damage. I suppose that would be a deck building concern, something that really wouldn't be able to be figured out until playtesting happens. Damage, status. So monster abilities come in 3 categories. I know I figured that out. So you have offensive, you have support, and you have defensive abilities. So all the abilities should fall under those categories. And those could be we'll have to make new categories for this. So we are going to I'm just gonna here with relics. Enhance a specific, or enhance a monster with a new ability or new latent. So this is where the game, I'm trying to separate it as much as I can, but it's hard. This is where the game draws inspiration from Pokemon a lot, and I'm just gonna have to lean into it until playtesting makes it its own entity. And it's Pokemon didn't come up with all the ideas. There was a lot from JRPGs in general, the status effects and stuff like that, the turn-based combat, when it boils down is they limited move sets. Like each of the Pokemon is like a JRPG character, except they're not fighting together, they're fighting one-on-one in a round. So it's the novel way it was put together, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do here, is create a novel way of playing a card game. And This is all still really rough. It only gets better when you start creating things. Okay. So I'm gonna leave this for a second. I'm gonna come back because this is a bit filled out. We got relics, we got possible transformations that will change the monsters, make them stronger, whatever. We got monster abilities, but the main basic core of the idea is player actions. We got monster abilities, and we got relics, which obviously not going to want to stuff your deck with relics. I really hope if the game develops. So right now I'm only planning on making 2 starter decks, and I want to design the game to be able to release a monster in basically a pack, and you just buy 4 of these monster packs, you put them together, you got your action deck, and then buy them or print them, whatever. I'm setting up a way. I'm trying to make it. I'm trying to make it print and play and as accessible as possible. But I'm also thinking. I've also thought and looked at printing an official print as well. So that's why I'm saying you get 4 monsters. You have the pack, and then that pack. You just buy 4 of those and you can play, or you buy a starter deck that has 4 monsters already set up that's kind of a balanced team already, and you just play with that. So you either buy a deck or you buy 4 monsters, whatnot. A lot of the trouble I have is with the monster abilities, because it would be nice to make it in such a way that you can use different abilities with different monsters, but there has to be some key way to identify what monsters can use what cards, and that either gets to be a slippery slope of well, maybe not a slippery slope. That gets to be a major headache in that I have to update and print and maintain all of the monsters that I have in sort of bestiary, and then what moves they can use as I come up with new ideas over time, and keep it all updated, or have a printout. That means players have to as well, and every time it updates they have to keep going back. It gets unintuitive, and it gets to be a headache really fast. The other idea I've had is having to maintain information on cards, and I did this on a card game I made a long time ago, and it's where the idea comes, because this isn't the first time I've bashed my head against the wall on this exact problem. I got a feeling I can finish it this time. I have the time right now to sit and really hammer through it, and it's gonna be do it first and solve it later. And the prototyping phase. So the other idea I have is giving attributes to monsters and abilities needing those attributes. So one of the problems that you could face as you're going, you get a monster knocked out and you have cards specifically for that monster. Well, 2 ways to do it. It's tied to that monster. You got to print it on a card. This monster can use this ability, and it's for this monster, and only that monster can use that ability. And then you turn it into a resource. So, actually, that might be it. See, and talking it out, that helps. Okay, because I've been banging my head against the resource. I'm gonna type this down here. So I've been banging my head against the resource thing. How do you get cards on the run? How do you tie this to 7-card draw where you get better cards by tossing so many cards, and you discard cards and whatnot, and with the shuffling through the deck? So I'm gonna get rid of the discard and draw abilities, because that's gonna be innate to the game. The discarding and draw at this point. So, oh, I love brainstorming. I love talking it out. Talking it out helps a lot. So what I am going to do is say, oh no, now I lost it. Cards are resources. To play a card, you have to discard cards of certain value to place a card on the run. So now, the one thing this does break with the conceptualization I have had in my head and how this game plays is the simultaneous play. So this solves an issue with having extra relics in the deck, if we decide on transformations, or I decide on transformations, it can turn those into resources, and all sorts of things. But at that, you have to have a player that goes first, and you gotta have a player that goes second. You can't have simultaneous. I'm gonna leave it there now. Maybe be able to figure out a simultaneous play thing with that, because I like the idea of a run. I like the idea of playing ahead without prior knowledge. Maybe not too far ahead, but like 2 cards ahead, so you're playing ahead on it. But the whole thing now is that you're discarding. You could do that. Alright. Instead of place a card on a run to certain value, a card on the run triggers. So basically, yeah, you can play ahead. You're paying, because I was like, well, the amount you're discarding is going to instantly reveal the power of the card you're playing, because obviously you're going to want to have higher power abilities, do that, and I want to maintain the hidden knowledge. Yeah, you got to pay for it when it triggers then. So you're still playing ahead, pay it when it triggers. And then we will say, you do not have the resources when the card the run is trying to trigger it business. I can probably come up with a better term with that, but most people would know what that means. It basically doesn't allow it to be played. So that way, say, say you, for whatever reason, have an ability to interact with your opponent's hand, and cause them to discard cards or whatnot. We'll go this way. And so hand interaction would be like discard. So I'm just getting ahead of myself. Hand interaction was the initial thought. Probably spelled that wrong. I'm having a tough time with opponent. I'm gonna have to Google that real quick. Work on my spelling. I was way off. Okay. gonna be using that word a lot, so. Alright, I got it. Opponent discard. Alright. So you got denial, information, denial, information. I don't want to have any damage up in the player actions. I just want it to be a little bit of extra. And then, yeah, monsters. So you can move your monsters in formation, so formation change. They're basic. They're gonna be pretty basic. Probably fit into every deck that needs to have different types of actions, potions, whatnot. They'll fit into every deck. Monster abilities, probably gonna have to do it tied to a per monster. Basically, this monster can use this monster can use this. It's on the card, printed on the card. What monster can use it or what monster it's for. Which, you know, I don't know, make 18 million different abilities trying to balance it out, but there'll have to be some overlap. I'll have to look into that. Really sit down and try and figure out all the abilities and stuff. Possibly transfer. Okay, that looks all right. Okay. So we kind of got a rough draft of the game, how it's going to play. This is probably getting cut, so I'm just going to do this and say... working with it. This is just part of it. Trying to get it down, trying to change, trying to get all the ideas that I've had together in one, because they work as ideas together, but you gotta start hammering them together and cut things out. This I'm pretty sure is getting cut right now. I want to leave the idea on paper. It's just in case I decide to come back to it. But right now, this is getting cut. This is gonna get messy, so I'll probably end up saving this and then making a version 0.2 save. But I'm gonna go on break here soon, get some stretch time, get my mind cleared out, use the restroom here soon, and when we get back to it here, so it'll be about a 15-minute break. It looks like it'll be about half past the hour when the break starts, so I will be back at the 45 on the hour. Just a short 15-minute break, stretch, bathroom, water, and then we'll start the next hour and get back to it there. I was aiming for I wanted to do somewhere between 4 and 6 hours, but we'll see how far we get. If I start hitting a wall, um, I may have to stop the stream and do a little more planning or a little more learning, because if we get to the point where I'm making cards, designing the cards, I have a program that I'm planning on using, Cocktail, um, and I haven't spent the time to get to know the program yet. So if I get to the point where we're going to be starting to lay out cards for getting into a playtest arena or getting into a print to play situation, I'm probably going to cut the stream short, for that, and take time to learn. I'll still be putting in the time, but it's not something I don't know. Maybe you do want to watch me sit and struggle to learn a program. Maybe that's good. I know. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think anybody wants it. But yeah, when we get back to it here, I will be starting. We can just lay it out. Cards and the information they present. And that'll be the no. Sorry about that. I'll have to figure out the music situation too here. Yeah. Alright. So monster cards and the information they present. So this is going to be dependent on evolution. I'm going to have to make the choice. I'm going to say, oh god, because I'm doing all the art and stuff too. I was trying to make it simple. Probably going to say yes to making the monsters grow and change in the game. The transformations. Give people some, I don't know, maybe different choices, multi-line transformation or something. Just really make it confusing for myself, and design when I was trying to do something simple. So yeah, we'll have that information on the cards. Monster line, start with basics, and then do the Digimon route where they can turn into all sorts of different crazy stuff at the end. And that seems the route. You want to change it, feel more like Magic. But as it is, I'm gonna go take a break. I'm gonna walk around for a bit. I'm gonna go use the restroom, and I will be back in about 15 minutes. Walk around yourself, get some stretch, and I'll meet you back here. Okay. Let's see here. Set up the timer. When it hits the 45, I'm gonna hit the start here. And we will get back to it. Oh, there we go. Okay. I'm probably not gonna have to worry about chat at all there. Might need to increase my voice. I don't know. I'll have to listen to this afterwards and see how bad the quality is. This is all right. So we're gonna get back to this here. Let's see. Do 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 do. Oh, 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 oh. That. No. Ah. Okay. I'm gonna have to do more work to get everything a little more stable, but that's all right. It's all a learning experience, and ever since I started streaming, I have enjoyed making small improvements here and there to get it better. Yes, it is a little embarrassing hearing your own voice and looking at how awkward you are, but it's all a learning experience. Okay, so here's the key thing. This is getting back into this, starting to look at monsters, and the monsters are the most important part. They're the team, they're the personal, the big personalization, and where the balance comes from. So certain monsters can use certain moves. You get the ability to balance your team. They're your secret. They can. I did decide that when they're going to be able to evolve or transform. They're going to be able to transform. And I think I'm going to do multi-line transformations. Keep it interesting. Again, that's probably a situation that'll have to be cut. And another problem that lies in is the way I'm trying to print the official prints of the cards is in packs. If you have a transformation of a monster that has a different moveset, how are those gonna go? Whether because you get a certain value for a certain number of cards printed, it costs so much money. It's a whole thing that does have to be taken into consideration when you're designing a game. If you're thinking about printing it in an official printing place, you want to give as much value as you possibly can to the people that are paying the money, and for yourself. If you're buying it for yourself, if you're just printing to play with your friends, you do have to think of that part of the process when you're designing a game, and you're designing how to make the game and how you want to produce the game. Ultimately, I do hope to set up a Patreon for this game, in that you just subscribe for a month and you download pictures and you just print and play. So that'll be the print and play aspect of it. But it's mostly, and you have access to everything then. But I do want to have an official printing too, where you get nice cards and you can play with friends and stuff. The tabletop simulator version of the game, which I will be working on this stream as well. I got a lot to learn with Tabletop Simulator. I'll probably be spending my weekends working on learning how to do that, mainly because of the whole complexity of a game. Apparently, there's a way to do deck building games, and the only thing I worry about is the number of cards over time. Right now, it's not too much of a concern. Just deal with it. I mean, it's gonna be what it's gonna be. So, okay, back to this. Monster cards and the information they present. So cards need a name. Cards need a, let's say, typing. And or things as such for rock, paper, scissors. Why am I not spelling scissors right? Rock, paper. That is not how you spell. That's. Oh my god. How do I? My brain is not working today. Ah. It is just a weird word. Rock, paper, scissors type place. So whether I go with my Schools of Magic here, which I started hammering out, which basically comes out to you got all these, but it basically boiled down to occult, arcane, or deistic, and I might go with it. So you have that, and it basically becomes a two-layer thing: magic system or monster system, power system. Power system, I guess, would be the best way to put it. I'm gonna take a look at this afterwards and see if it's what I want to do, because you can do the basic fired. This is not what I want. Sorry about that. My music is kind of all over the place. All right. Back to what I was doing. Okay. So, yeah. So I kind of like this. Thematically, drawing, it is still kind of limited. I could just add a basic, because one of the first monsters I want to make is every game needs it. Every game, well, since Akira Toriyama made Dragon Quest, the Dragon Quest monsters, is the slime. It's in everything, and actually, I believe he took information or inspiration from D&D and Gary Gygax. Stuff with that, with the slime monster. But I want to make a monster called a Snot, and that's what it's going to be, because thematically I'm drawing a lot of inspiration from Pokemon, and something that here I was name dropping and I forget his name now. I'm going to feel silly. The creator of Pokemon said that when they were designing monsters and doing it, if they were trying to sell to an American audience, they would have gone scarier monsters and bigger. So I'm taking that idea that he said if you wanted to sell to that, they'd be going that. So I'm gonna go a more scary monsters, not cutesy monsters. They'll be a little cute. My art style is just generally cute, but in form they're gonna be a little more eccentric that way. Lean more to the scary than anything else. So there's that. I keep getting pop-ups here. I gotta figure out how to stop them. They're distracting me. When your workstation interrupts your work, it gets annoying. Windows is starting to irritate me. Okay. All right. So elements, we went over the elements, rock, paper, scissors. I just kind of went on a tangent of the type of monsters I'm gonna do or the drawing. I do have an art theme direction that I know I'm going, but art is like the last thing I'm gonna do because you can sit and spend a ton of time doing art resources and then be like, oh, I don't like the way that's going. And I have to start over. So art is the very last thing that I'm gonna be doing. And since I only have 1 month, it's not necessarily something that I'm going to finish in this month. The main thing that I want to finish is getting a playable, well, 2 decks tested in the game. That's what this month has. And if I get further than that, awesome. I would love to get further than that. But there's no guarantee on that. Alright, so we got a name, we got a typing. Innate ability. I think it's 2 N's on innate. Oh god. Okay, and then so they need hit points. All right, here's the thing. So they definitely need speed. That's something, because that determines how they go around. Since the moves are tied directly to monsters, like you have to be in a specific line to be using this ability or whatnot. As it is now, having an attack power doesn't quite make sense because it's always going to be static. And this is the problem I'm having with the abilities and how to tie them all together. Because it would be nice to have abilities interchangeable between monsters and then use an attack damage. So like multiple Pokemon can use Ember, they get different results depending on how good they are attuned to that specific thing. The way I have this set up is that each monsters have their own attacks. I'm just gonna turn this music down just a bit. The reason it's up, it says it's peaking, so I'm gonna turn that. No, maybe right about there. And see how that goes. I'll have to go and check. This is a fairly long stream here, so probably the longest I've done. I used to just play for about an hour and then be done streaming. It's kind of exhausting to talk for an hour. You get used to it though. This wasn't meant to be a talking stream, but actually talking out loud is quite helpful. And I've gotten so used to talking that, you know, I don't have any audience right now. I've gotten so used to talking that it's just kind of a thing, you know. You just think out loud and you get used to it. So you have speed. So, yeah, I'm gonna make attributes, and attributes because I've been floundering on this. We'll say attributes are you need certain attributes to use abilities. And that kind of solves it. It'll be written. It'll be like a lot, like basically just a line. I don't want it to become a textbook, and that's the problem. Like you need teeth to bite. And that gets to be a problem because then you look at the picture and you'd be like, oh, this thing definitely has. I'll figure that out later. Whether they're all using magical abilities or what, I'll have to figure that out. So you got hit points. We are gonna do would be attack. It's just one. We'll call it magical. Proficiency. Something like that. I want to call it. I don't want to call it strength, but it basically sets up the strength. I'll find another word for it. So this is kind of the setup. It creates a rock paper scissors strike. Rock paper scissors situation. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it like that for now. Is there anything else I can add? It's I want to keep it simple. Proficiency. That's what I was looking for. Get rid of that. Change this. Get rid of that. We'll keep those there. And what do they call it in D&D? So that'll count as defense for both those. And yeah, it might have to be balanced out because that ends up in a situation where you just put a big brick to defend everything and you just stall out the game. I'll try and avoid that, but we'll leave this for now. It gives the basic idea. It's gonna be tested out, and try and find a way around that. We're gonna go with a maybe on this. Is that might be the place that I want to keep relics around for. Like instead of stacking a ton of abilities, it gets to be confusing to keep track of for the player. Just leave it on relics and whatnot, and go from there. So we have that. Speed, strength, hit points, name, typing, innate ability. We're just gonna say that's cut. So they have name, typing, which will give elemental strength, attributes, hit points, needs to have all right, there. So what I'm thinking here, because I'm thinking of how the game changes because I did decide to have monsters transform as the game goes on to change things. They become stronger, and whatnot. So you have to have a transformational line. I don't want it to be a static transformational line. So they have to have transformational line attributes, basically. Like, these are the attributes. It's winged, it's whatever. So you have to have probably certain attributes, and then a transformational line type. So, like, say you're in the slime family, let's say transformational family. That'll make it easier. So you're in a transformational family, and then you gotta match things. So there's some information. This information has to be on all cards. And this information is only on level 2 cards and level 2 and up cards. So we have requirements. So this is a lot of information already to be putting on a card. So we gotta remember we have to have a picture. Alright. So on all the cards, we have to have a picture, we have to have a name, we gotta have a typing. Just erasing that. I don't want innate abilities. I don't even need to remember that I have that. That's going on relics, the unique abilities that happen when they come out. Attributes, you need certain attributes, whether it's tentacles, whether it's whatever. Typing would fall into a type of an attribute, which gets a little confusing. And we haven't, or I haven't settled on how the typing works quite yet. But there's that. So we got hit points, which they all need. Physical strength, magical proficiency, fortitude, speed, transformational family, information on level 2 cards, the requirements. And I think that's level 2 and up. Let's go stage. So transformational stage. On stage 2 cards and up. And then the requirements that need to be met for that card to transform. And that's requirements and cost. So the requirements will be typing and attribute requirements, and then cost. So yeah, I've totally fallen into that thing that I was talking about earlier, where the cards are the value, because I've totally strayed from and right back into that not using mana and the problems that it causes. But that does give me a new card type. So action cards, player actions, and I will make a new type. You can call it energy. Resource. So those are in there just to just to pay for things, basically. They'll be the highest value resources, or they'll be able to get you off typing resources, because each of the abilities will be tied to a type, and so they'll help tie things together, allow more complex strategies. Again, it's getting complex, but it's getting complex because I'm trying to tie all these ideas together in practice. When I get down to it and start figuring out how things go together, a lot of things need to be cut. Will need to be cut as it goes on. Okay. So this is all the information that has to go on the monster cards. Okay. So this gets to be a thing because you shuffle. Oh, that's the wrong one. Okay, this is out. I'm just going to erase that. Otherwise, it's going to get confusing to look at. Cleanup phase. Okay. The idea for a round has to change now. I've laid out and I've thought out what type of cards are in the action deck. And I've kind of thought out how the monsters are, or the information they have and do. So I'm gonna go back to this. It's getting cut. That's staying. Player, the goal of the game is to knock the monsters out. Setting up the game. Each player plays 4 monster cards face down on the field. They can be placed in 2 rows, up to 4 columns. The front row takes no penalties, gets no bonus. The back row gets a defense bonus and an attack penalty. If there are no monsters in the front row, the back row becomes the front. Each player shuffles their action deck and places it on the table. When both players have their monsters in place, flip the monsters. Okay. So to start, each player draws 7 cards. Okay. So the whole thing is I've eliminated this simultaneous play. There is, with the design choices that I made further down the line, keep it more interesting, I have had to delete the simultaneous play, I think. Is there any way I can keep that in? Because I really like the idea of simultaneous play, but I don't know if there's any way to do it. So basically, the run is there to keep simultaneous play in play with, and I still would like the run. You're being locked into your choices 1 or 2 moves ahead of what's actually happening on the field. So you're blind to the actions. You have to think ahead, and I like that. Whether it's 1 or 2 actions, I'm not sure. So we will do the simultaneous play. We're going to change this though. Each player draws 7 cards. I'm just gonna hit enter, kind of go down, and we're gonna rethink this whole thing. Now that we've got more together. So each player draws 7 cards. Each player plays face down on their run 2 cards, or a card. So we'll say on their run 2 cards. So you got to play two rounds. Your run is only 2 cards, and it's always 2 cards. Card is knocked out. A player gets to replace it. So your run should always be 2 cards, and that's what I'm doing. So each player draws 7 cards. Each player faces down on their run 2 cards. Okay. So they've each played. Draw back to 7 cards. And that's going to be the whole thing. You're never. I want to reward using cards. So the more actions you take, the more interact with the game, the more you get to draw, the more you get to play. That's really why I took any draw card abilities out at the moment. Because I would rather that just be innate. You spend cards, you draw cards. You use higher value cards, you get to draw more cards. It incentivizes high play and quick play. Is the idea. How it plays out could be completely different. It could just be annoying as heck. But I want to try it. I'm already rewriting the game just by coming up with ideas, so this is how quickly things change. Alright, draw back to 7 cards. Alright. So each player has played those cards. So this should actually be part of the setup. Because from after you have set up your initial actions, rounds are going to play out a little differently. Because you're not going to do that every round. You're not going to play their 2 cards on their. Okay. And that remakes the simultaneous play. So we're back to simultaneous play where we wanted to be. And this pretty much stays the same. Okay, so players may play player abilities. cards. So after you got the 2 cards down on the run, alright. I want to say at any time, but because for some interaction, like say you have some choices, when you're finally see an ability and they're attacking you or whatnot, to react to what's happening. I would like some of that, but it's hard to word. You know, Magic uses instance and sorcery. Instance you can play at any time you have priority, and that's where things get complicated and where you start running into an issue where you're allowing things to be played at any time. You're mucking up a lot of understandings, things that intuitively come to players. So when you're writing that, oh, you can play this at any time to react to this or do this, you're kind of messing up the flow of things. So I think I'd rather set it up to where so this is where it gets out of simultaneous play, and it kind of has to, because otherwise you're putting player abilities on the run. And if you're putting player abilities on the run, it kind of loses that action. Player. All right, so we can say for now, just holding it. Maybe find a better way to do it. Randomly choose a player to have round priority. Maybe it switches back and forth between rounds. Maybe because there's going to be whoever has round priority is going to obviously have an advantage. And I'll have to find a way to do that. So well, maybe we'll see, because the person without may have more have a better time with things because they get information. So it's one of those things. So a player with priority can play one. Oh, what did I call them? Player actions. That's probably a horrible way to type that out, but so basically a player with priority can play one player action. The next player can then play theirs. So basically locking in instead of just stacking a bunch of players and just doing it, each player gets to take a player action on their turn, which is played by cards. Their player actions are determined by cards. They're just not, oh, I can do this and I can do that. And maybe I'll get there. It depends on how it plays out. But I like the idea of having them cards. That way you can have potions and other such things in there that are in their actions, or switching your line how they set up. So if you lose your front liner and you have a bunch of defensive, you can choose your next front liner, but you have to have a card to be able to switch them out. You can't just do that. Which is where I'm kind of running into a thing, because it's like, oh well, maybe take a player action to just do that. All right. So that's one phase. So we got the player action phase. We'll call that the player action phase. It makes sense. That's what I've been calling it. I'll find a better term for it. So you got the player action phase. So the players rearrange, enforce, reinforce, do whatever. Player action phase. Let's say. So yeah, so both players draw back to 7. So this is where the 7 card draw idea comes from. So basically, you're trying to discard or use as many resources as you can to build up resources and get a better hand. You can spend less to get a better hand, more powerful ability, or just spend your resources. It's the whole balance to the game. Player action phase. So from there we go to the run flip phase. Right, so now we're on the run flip phase. We're getting rid of the cleanup phase for sure. This is where we're at now. Alright. So the run flip play phase. Player flips the first card of their run. They choose which monster is going to use the ability. And pay the cost. If a player cannot pay the cost, they take no action that round, and the ability is sent to the discard pile. So that'll all have to be cost balancing. Sent to the discard pile. The abilities resolve in the order of the chosen monster's speeds. So that means if you're like, oh, this monster uses this ability and this monster uses, and the other guy's this one, it resolves in the order. This does get hairy because it's supposed to be simultaneous play, and the whole thing with this and the way I've set up the abilities now is that different monsters can use it. So you could get really messy things. Well, I'm gonna have this monster use this ability and this one, so your opponent goes, oh, I'm attacking this. So basically what I'm gonna have to do is the priority. Priority is gonna have to switch back and forth. I don't know if that's gonna get confusing, but you do have to have some sort of player priority in order to get this to work. As much as I want just automatic simultaneous play, you can't. People get weird, and you gotta limit stuff. People are gonna be
using whatever information they can. So you gotta limit the amount of conflicts that are gonna happen with people because people will do anything to win, even though it's all supposed to be about fun, and that's what it's trying to do. But you do gotta think about conflict in the game too, and any little thing that's not counted for very likely will cause conflict, unfortunately. So each player flips the first card of their run. That's simultaneous. So the way I think, I'm not gonna write this down. I'm gonna make a note.
Try changing priority by round and phase. So, oh, geez. Whoever has priority for action phase does not have priority for the run flip. And I will say as well, switch who has first priority between rounds.
And that's just a balance thing, because the actual action is going to be tied to that. And this is something that's absolutely going to have to be tested out, because it's a little bit goofy. And I'll try and bring it back to as much simultaneous play as I can. Because I really like the idea. I know I've said that it's gonna need like a banner that says simultaneous play. Need the simultaneous play. Okay. Run flip. Action is sent to the discard pile. Player cannot pay the cost of the actual abilities resolve at the chosen monster speeds. Resolve. Well, I can move that to the next line. Resolve cards are moved to the discard pile. And both players draw back to 7. Alright. These aren't going to be the final names, but I'm being descriptive with names. The run refill, we'll call it. We'll actually hold off on the players drawing back to 7. We'll do that there. We'll do a round. You got to pay for all your costs, and you got to pay on your run. So you got to be thinking of what you got on your run, and you got to be thinking of what kind of player action costs you want to pay. Then you run your flip. You got to pay for your run, and then you got to do your refill phase, and then you get to draw back up to 7. So at the end of the round, you get to draw back up to 7. Drawing up to 7 every time is a lot. That's a lot. So I'm just wording it that way because just in case someone was able to knock a card out of the run on you or something like that, it's that way you always have two. And I should put up here. No, I won't put that. I won't put that. All right. I was gonna put what I was gonna thinking about putting up here is that if there's no cards in the run, that player is just kind of stuck. And I don't think, because one player can take one action, I don't think I would ever make a player action that's like delete their 2 cards on the run. The only thing that you'd be wanting to do is manipulating their run, swapping those 2 cards, just messing with their plans. And that's some of the interactions that'll be in there possibly. Perhaps some innate abilities of things. Maybe you can get a triple ray. There's all sorts of things we can play with. We're setting this up. We're getting more we can play with cards, relics, that sort of thing, and what they do. You could do the innate ability of monsters, which it's either, the problem with innate abilities on monsters is you're changing it and you have too many things, where if you do like a relic and you equip that relic to a monster, then they get that ability as they transform, where otherwise you're trying to keep track of well, I transformed it into this, I increased my run size, but now my run size isn't that big or something like that. And not that that's for sure going to be in the game, but that's just one of the things I'm thinking about as I'm designing it. So that's a little cleaner. We have more information written out, a better idea of the cards that are going to be in there. Talked about it, and now we got a better idea for the phase than what we just had, because we've defined cards, we've defined things, what we're going to do. Now the question that I'm having for myself, and I think what I want so I'm gonna change this to player action. So really, we only have 3 types of cards. So we have 3 types. We got player actions. We have oh, I don't want that. Here, resource. And monster abilities. Alright. Okay, so those are the 3 types of cards we have. We have player actions, tier resource cards, and monster abilities. So these So these cards are played on the runs. These cards are just paid for... Oh, why can't I spell that? All right. So I've kind of broken it down to the types of things you can do and in consideration. Obviously, you're each taking one per turn. All right. Well, it's getting pretty close to a break here. So the next thing I'm going to do after the break here is take a better look, because we just went through this and we fixed that with considerations for how we've done it. We've gotten a pretty good idea of what we're trying to do. So next, I think I'm gonna break this up into several... Okay. I'm gonna do the same thing I did for these 3 different types of cards, and make a list of the information I need to have on those, because I'll need that information when I'm doing card layout or prototype card layout and information. And then after that, I'm gonna have to start making rules for values. So like, the distribution of points and stuff can't be just any random number I decide. There has to be a cost value to it, and the transformations, like something that costs more resource intensive cost creature is going to be able to get more points, and there has to be some sort of mathematical representation, so I can kind of have an easier way of tweaking and balancing the game than just, oh, this is random this and this is random this. But I'll see when and how I get to that. When I get back, I'm going to start setting these up and start breaking down the information I need for each of the cards, each of these 3 types of cards. So it looks like it will be on the 45 when I get back from break. I'll take about a 15-minute break again, and I'll have to figure out how on YouTube has a break screen. I got to figure out how to use that, because it has a countdown timer and everything. But I'm gonna get up. I'm gonna do some stretching. I'm gonna get some water, use the restroom, take a 15-minute break, and I will be back on the hour, and we will move on and just keep brainstorming and working on this. It looks like I'll get pretty close to prototyping some cards, and the whole thing is it's gonna take a while, because I haven't yet defined how many cards are gonna be in it. I'll probably do that off screen. I got to do a little research and rethink how I'm going to do it now that I've spent a lot of time brainstorming and actually writing it all on paper. I've been thinking about this for about a month. Now I'm writing it down. Things are coalescing. I've kind of juggled a lot of these ideas around before. I've tried making a similar game to this before, so see how it goes. But yeah, I'll be back on the hour to keep working. Get a little stretching, give my brain a break, and get back to it.
Okay. And get this last where's my clock? There we go. Okay. So for today, hopefully later I can do longer sessions. I just missed out on my studying. So for today, I think I'm gonna do this last hour segment here, and get ready for tomorrow. Made good progress, got where I wanted to get. So I'm gonna finish playing the information, figuring out the information I need to put on the cards, because that's the first big step. Is what information I have on cards. Tomorrow, I'll be digging into Cocktail and starting to lay out the prototype cards. They won't be the final thing. They'll be prototypes. They'll just have pure information. I'll see how much information is on the cards. So we'll be working on the layout. After the layouts are done, probably some brainstorming on ideas and stuff, which I'll also look into tonight as well, so I'm a little more prepared for it, because up to this point I've only conceptualized the game itself. I haven't thought of specifics, so from here on out it's going to be brainstorming on specifics and keeping open-ended things and stuff like that. So I'm gonna go create a new one here. We'll call this player actions. How did I set this up here? Monster card and information. They present to the players. All right. So we'll do that. Okay, so they need a name. Cost. Need to double space that. Cost. Name. Cost. Effect. Type. So the type can be action, relic, switch that up. That song's getting a little, ooh, maybe that's a little too much from going from that. Go to this. I'll have to, I don't know if I'll have enough time. I gotta do studying, but I'll try and get the music situation figured out here a little better. Alright. So we got, go back here. We got actions, relic, transformation, and I think that's all I have right now. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all the information I need for player actions. transformation has to be its own unique, because the transformations have to have all this information, but they also count as a player action. So I'm going to erase that. Relics are a little bit different. Relics fall into the same category. So I'm going to actually put an asterisk on that, and then I don't know how to. I'll just put a oh, well, counted as player actions have a monster card layout. And no effect. Or, you know, increase in complexity. You could have the transformation card in the deck, but then you pull out the information. That gets hairy. It depends on, you know, how big the monster cards need to be. I would like everything to fit into a nice layout, but it really depends on how it goes, I guess. So I'm actually gonna take this out. So you got an action or a relic. Relics play, their effect is permanent. So like an action would be like potion ×2, remove 2 damage counters off things. Oh, which reminds me. Uh, So there's this whole thing where I'm thinking like protection shell. You take less damage from things for such and such a time. I want to say those cards aren't removed to the discard pile until the effect ends, but I'm gonna make a note here. Possible, but and that way it's easier to keep track of. You keep it on the field, like say in Magic. Yeah, I've played a lot of Magic. I'm going there. I've played Pokemon too. Tried playing Yu. I've never actually successfully played Yu-Gi-Oh. I played Digimon Monsters back in the day. But yeah, I think that's a good way to keep information, because otherwise you're like, oh wait, I got a status token. How many turns is it? And then you could just put the card there, put a couple counters on it, remove a counter each turn. So at the beginning of the phase, we will have a basically an upkeep. I don't know what to call it. Remove timing counters from status cards.
That way that's tied into there. Just so we got everything. This is all still pretty rough here. Okay. So this is pretty basic. You don't need much information on these cards. Name, cost, we'll say picture, type, action or relic, and the effect. Actually, say action item. I know relic tends to be I don't want to call it equipment. It is equipment or enhancement. Items will be single round enhancements or single round things, or you know, it only affects the one round, maybe a couple rounds, but it goes away. Actions are just player actions move, which again, maybe I'll move it to things, but this might be more of a thing. Really depends on playtesting. I know I'm talking in circles because I'm thinking at the same time I'm talking, and it's not working very well. All right, we'll make a new one of these. Oh, what did I do? Oh, I want to unpin that. I want to move that back to where I had it. Otherwise, I'm gonna get confused. All right. 5, okay, 4, and I'll name these when I'm done with the stream here. So we're gonna go. All right. So these are pretty basic. We're gonna have a name, and the amount of information, or the amount of resources they cover. And yeah, I mean, there's not much. Name, picture, the amount of resources they cover. So that's pretty darn basic. What did I have here? All right, so we'll do that. And these these need a little more information to them. So we'll have the name of the ability. We will have the cost of the ability. 3 attributes. So the attributes that have to be met in order to use the ability, because that's how you'll tie them together, and that's the whole thing. I'm gonna have to start making a list of different attributes, and that's where things are gonna get fuzzy. I'm not gonna do that today, probably not tomorrow. I gotta spend some time brainstorming that, because I have to settle, and I'm not settled on how and what I want to name things. So I'll probably have some placeholder rock paper scissors. I'll probably call them rock paper scissors until I decide, because it can be tested without the theme in there. The theme isn't necessary. How it interacts is. The theme can come later. So so necessary attributes, which would include wow. I'm gonna have to keep those separate. So
what did I call that on the, so that would be this one. Typing and attributes. Alright. So necessary typing, necessary attributes, cost, name, then effect. Oh. And type. So this would be, we have 3 types, and they are offensive, defensive, and support. Peer status effects would either fall under offensive or support. But there should also be another thing that says if it's instant or multi-round. But that'll probably be in the effect. So I'm actually gonna because there's something that could have instant effects and then they have multi-round effects. So we have that. So we got the monster ability run cards, name, cost, necessary typing, necessary or prerequisite typing, prerequisite attributes, what type they are, offensive, defensive, or support. I don't know if that needs to be in the card or not. Besides just keeping track for deck building information. I don't know if I'm going to have any interaction with those, but it does open up the door to have interactions with certain types. Well, actually, that opens up the door to maybe equipping a relic on a monster that increases their ability to cast support cards or reduces the cost of support cards for that particular monster. So the typing is a good thing. So you can give certain monsters better proficiency with certain things, and this is what I like, and I'm glad I've taken the time to sit down and brainstorm and being very flexible with the design as I go without trying to add new things. What was I trying to add there? I don't think I need to. Yeah, I don't need to add anything to that. So relics. Well, items will do similar things to relics, except they only last a couple turns or whatnot. Relics are perpetual, but they probably should cost. And this is where the costing. I won't know how to. Oh, you know what I'm forgetting? All of these. So name, cost. So here's the thing. This is where it's going to get confusing, because if you can use these cards as resources and cost, depending on how you put them on the card, because they're going to visually look very similar. So I can't just use a symbol. I'll have to put cost somewhere, like this is what it costs, instead of, so when you're looking at it, you're not looking, oh, this costs this much, this is the amount of resources I get from it, because there'll be different things. So, but that's going to come down with more design issues when I get to designing the cards themselves, art wise and categorically, which I'm excited to do, but not there. So all these cost. And I'm probably gonna have to make extra cards because I'm not even quite sure what a good balance would be. I would say because you need 2 cards per. I think you would want like 50% of your cards to be monster abilities and 50% of your cards to be um, player actions, since you basically get 2 actions per round, and hopefully the rounds go quickly. You're not going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff per round. Um, I'm debating on whether to make being able to switch your line just an innate player ability that takes place of a player action, in which at that point being able to take actions without having to utilize a card, an item, or a relic, then you would want more abilities than you would want items or relics and stuff like that. But that's up in the air. That's going to come down to testing. If anything can be abused too much that way, then I don't want it. But okay, that's that. Now I gotta think. I got about 40 minutes left here. Am I forgetting anything? I'd like to finish up this last 40 minutes because I might not be able to. What could I do that I have laid out? Okay. I'm gonna read over this and see if if I'm missing anything that I've thought about or talked about so far. So parts of the game. Each player has 4 monsters of their choosing with stats on cards on field before the game starts. Each player brings an action deck with them. Play the game. 52 undetermined amount. I'll figure that out. The goal of the game is to knock out all of the opponent's monsters. Setting up the game. Each player plays 4 monsters face down on the field. They can be placed in 2 rows up to 4 columns. The front row takes no penalties and gets no bonus. The back row gets a defense bonus and an attack penalty. If there are no monsters in the front row and the back row becomes the front. Each player shuffles their action deck and places it on the table. When both players have their monsters in place, they flip the monsters. Each player draws 7 cards. Each player then plays face down on their run 2 cards. Run should always be 2 cards. If a card gets knocked out, a player gets to replace it. This is a caveat because we do that at the end of the round now. So I'm just gonna actually get rid of that because that gets confusing. That was just a placeholder idea. Okay, then we draw back to 7 cards. So after you did it, I'm getting rid of players should always have 7. So in the initial setup, you draw back to 7. And every round after you drop to 7, that's in the rules now. Then at this point, you have to randomly choose. Okay. So you shouldn't see the monsters before you flip. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. I'll just leave it. Okay, then you randomly choose which player has round priority for the first round. The rough idea for a round. Remove timing counters from, let's say, multi-turn. Remove time encounters from multi-turn cards. Then you move to the player action phase. Each player gets 1 action. The player with priority can play their action cards. Then the next player can play theirs. They're resolved when they're played. So you can't really interact with that. Then you move on to the run flip phase. So the 2 cards you put down, each player flips the first card of their first card of their run by priority. So whoever was chosen for the priority, or actually the opposite person chosen for priority, you switch priority, or that's what I'm aiming for, switching priority. By priority, they choose which monster is going to use the ability. So each player says, they flip their card. I'm like, hey, this card is going to be used by this monster. And then you pay the cost. And then the other person says, this card is going to be used by this monster. And then they pay the cost. Speed is chosen. Then basically the abilities resolve. When the abilities resolve, they choose targets, all that other stuff. At the time it resolves, not at the time of who they say is going to use the ability. All confusing stuff. That's probably the most complex part of the game, is how the run works and how the abilities resolve and stuff. This is no possible cards that maintain an effect. I think I'm actually gonna keep that in there. So this jumble here, what I'm reading here, probably needs to be rewritten. I am getting a little tired because I've been talking for 3 hours about. So I might go back and after the stream rework the wording here. After I get time for a nap or something. Reset my brain, come back and reread it. But that's where I'm reading. I'm reading that there's a little bit of confusion that in this area here. I'm gonna move on to the run refill phase. So basically, after you've each played the run, each player is gonna put a new card on their run. So there has to be. So then we're on the run refill phase. They're putting a new ability down. I've spotted an issue here. So if need to have a penalty for not being able to add a card to the run. Because yeah, let's say you use up all your abilities on the cost and whatnot. So you don't have any cards in hand to play something because you've spent them all. Maybe making a big action. So what I think a good thing for that is a blank card is placed into the run to cause the player not to be able to take an action. The turn it is flipped. That being said, I'm already having ideation of being able to knock cards out of the run, so it's not necessarily if you know your deck can handle it, you may be able to take advantage of that rule a little bit. That's just something is placed there. A token or a card, a blank card is placed there to signify that place is on build. Maybe you take a smaller action next turn along with the player action to knock it out and put a new card there. Then we'll say each player, and then at the end of the round, each player draws up to 7. And always, if a player has no cards in their deck, they shuffle the deck. So if you're trying to draw and you can't, you draw the cards, and then you have no cards, you shuffle what's in your discard and you put it back, and then you draw off the top of that. The game is finished when one player concedes the game or the player has no more monsters on the field. Then here's the note about priority changing.
So, let's see. Oh. Yeah. Okay. Excuse me. Ugh. So where did I see? So the run flip phase, I'm having issues. So each player flips the first card of their run. By priority, they choose which monster is going to use the ability and pay the cost. So that means they both flip simultaneously. The one with priority gets to choose which monster is going to use the ability, not that the ability is going to resolve. And this is where it's this because I'm trying to keep simultaneous play be a part of it, and that's why there's so much hidden information. So much hidden information in the game is to kind of keep it, trying to keep it as close to feeling that things are and actions and ideas are happening at the same time, and that people aren't going to be changing too much. There is the player actions which should help with the instant stuff. Priority, they choose which monster. So I'll flip the cards, choose which monster, and they pay the cost. And this is just a caveat if they can't send this card. Abilities, resolve in the order of the monster's speeds. Targets are chosen as the ability resolves. Put damage and status counters on monsters. Targets are chosen as abilities resolve. Put damage and status counters on monsters affected by abilities. Resolved cards are moved to the discard pile. Turn cards. Multi-turn cards are multi-turn cards have timing counters put on them. Oh. There, that works. Card has no timing counters on them. Move them to their owner's discard pile. That's a pretty good setup for the rules. There's going to be more things. These are going to change. This is still just a rough, basic idea because I know there's going to be caveats and little things when you start making a whole bunch of different effects. It does cause a bunch of issues. Hi, I will check this out. The action deck is made up of pure resource cards. Pure resource cards. I gotta rewrite this since I'm here. This is
confusing, and it does not make a good template. Index. Description of an action. Allows players to do things within the game. Player actions. What did I choose? Their player actions, resources, and monster abilities. Player actions. These cards. Player to advance, reinforce, or change would be the word. Rearrange their field, for lack of better words. They're monsters, they're field. Types of player actions include transformations, animations, relics, items, and strategic. I don't know a better name for moving monsters, or yeah, that could be like telling a monster to defend this round to increase their defense, which would cause their attack or whatnot to go up, or defend. Yeah, let's call it strategic. So movements. So I'm actually going to define that right now. So events, orders. Things like that, to defend themselves or defend another monster. Items. They're one-off uses. They can allow strategic healing and other such things. So basically, probably weaker versions of some non-attack healing. So maybe you can cause status effects. I'm not gonna rein it in on that. Permanent. And then yeah, that defining that only one may be attached to a monster at a time is important. Okay. Well, transformations allows a monster to change form in stages, so giving them access to different abilities and such. Some abilities will probably be stage locked. I can't really bold. Can't really cancel it. So we're just gonna do one of these. It's been a while since I've done this. Okay. We'll do these cards. Help me for various actions in the game. And that's all they do. Your resource cards are that. These cards are placed on the run. Represent the actions that the monsters can take. These can be defensive, support, or offensive. Do, do, do. Be either instant dissolve or turn. Oh, I'll make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh, getting a foot cramp. Getting a foot cramp.
So move monsters, potions, boosts, PS for interactions. Monster abilities, offensive, support, defensive. Abilities can be multi-round or single turn effects. Relics, transformation cards. All cards are resource cards. Resource cards give you more resources. I think I can delete all that. Cards are resources. Play a card, you have to discard cards of a certain value. Eat, 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 eat. I think I want to keep that. Get rid of that. And I think I can get rid of this. I don't have any. Oh, there are some. There is some. I'm gonna steal that little bit there. Trying to hide it here. So I'll have to come back and brainstorm ideas. Probably set up a spreadsheet to brainstorm ideas on abilities and relics and stuff like that. Kind of get a baseline. Um, like I said, I haven't thought about the details about things. I'm still kind of trying to just flesh out the main flow and idea, and then from there, tweak what I want to tweak from there. So, all right, X. Got that already put in there. Equip monsters with new link ability or stat. So all action cards are resources. To play a card, you have to discard cards of a certain value and type. Resolve. Did I put that in the rules over here? Because otherwise... Each player flips their cards on the run. By priority, they choose which monster is going to use the ability and pay the cost. If a player cannot pay the cost, they take no action that round, and the ability is sent to the discard. But that seems to be right. So I actually don't need this up here.
here. Action deck cards. An action deck contains all the cards that allow a player to do things within the game. Types of action cards include player actions, pure resource, and monster. Pure player actions are these cards allow the player to advance, reinforce, or rearrange their field. Um, Types of player actions includes transformations, allow a monster to change form in its stages. Relics give permanent effects or boost to monsters. Only one relic may be attached to a monster at a time. We'll hammer that out later. Items enhance a monster on the field or heal monsters or other such effects. Instant or not not ever be permanent, and probably no more than it really depends on how long the games take to play and whatnot with the way how frustrating that can be. But keeping them out of the deck near a shuffle can be a good thing or a bad thing, so it adds depth of strategy that I like. Um, you got strategic cards, field movements, defense orders, such as defending themselves or other monsters on your ideas that I have written for this: ideas for interaction, knock abilities off run, reveal cards on run, opponent discard, reveal cards in hand, and that's just to keep the interaction between players up, because that keeps people from playing solitaire in their game and allows them to interact. There'll be plenty of interactions, such as maybe stuns or paralysis, anything that's not too annoying on the field. But since each player can have 4 active monsters at a time, having one paralyzed isn't going to be the end of the world unless some finds a way to stop, which hopefully I'll try and avoid. But when you're designing a game, you can't always figure out all the complexities to a game. Pure resource cards, those are pretty simple. They'll help you pay for resources, whether you have an odd card out or whatever, and it's not typing is off, and it helps you pay for it, or it helps you pay for the higher cost things, because the pure resource will have higher values. And I'm just gonna say overpaying values for is gonna be just fine. If you overpay, it is. Monster abilities. These cards are placed on the run. So you're playing 2 turns ahead. These cards are placed on the run and represent the actions that the monsters can take or are taking. These can be offensive, support, or defensive. They can be either instant or resolve multi-turn. Instant on resolve, multi-turn, or both. And usually the both can be like, and take Pokemon for an example. Thunderbolt can cause paralysis. Well, if it causes paralysis, that card has to stay on the field to count it. It's removed from your deck until the multi-turn ability resolves. And once it does, it goes back to your discard and it can be shuffled in. So I haven't figured out, you're going through 7 cards a turn. I'm saying 52 cards in a deck, but that's probably going to change depending on all this new information I got and how I'm designing the game to be printed in the official print and stuff like that. So there is all that to figure out exactly how many cards are in a deck. So the information on the monster cards, which this is one I haven't reviewed in a while. Monster cards and the information they present on all cards. Oh yeah, because I got stage 2 and up, which will be in the deck, but they'll still need all the information of the monster card, which is a lot of information,
these cards. So, which I'll have to figure out. That's a problem. So you got the picture, the name, the typing, the attributes, so the things they need to in order to cast the abilities, hit points, physical strength, magical proficiency, fortitude, and speed. Um, so that breaks the typing. I don't know if I'm gonna keep it that way. It really depends on thematics as far as that goes. Basically, you're going to be getting strength bonus for the amount of damage you're doing, and you're going to get a defense bonus for your fortitude. Splitting it up between physical and magical adds another layer to the rock paper scissors, which adds depth. So it is something I want to keep in there, but it really depends on how complex the game gets and when people start having to do math and how confusing it gets. I want to keep it simple, so the bonuses are going to be pretty cut and dry. Then this should actually, I'm gonna this. So since they don't have direct transformational lines, it's more like Digimon, just to allow more flexibility. The monsters you see coming out doesn't necessarily give you all the information how the game's going to end. I prefer it that way. It adds a lot of trouble for me, but and the design and the drawing and how it goes, I could simplify it to make less of a headache for myself. But I think overall, game wise, the game wants it this way. The game has a mind of its own. It wants, it feels, it needs. The transformational family and the attributes are what's necessary. Well, the attributes, you need to know what abilities you use. Transformational family is important because these two together allow you to stage 2 and up. You need that information, so the typing, attribute, and transformational family. And how that information is presented, I'll have to think about it, because that gets to be pretty complex. But I still got to keep things that I could possibly just use a symbol for. And this symbol is this symbol; these symbols match, so I can play that. And that's kind of what I'm going for. Attributes will have to be words. And I don't know how I'm gonna do that without making it too complex. Cost and resource value. Yeah. So there's a lot of, on stage 1, there's already a lot of information. On all stage 2 cards, they're gonna have to have an extra block of information. That's a lot of information, and that's gonna be hard. That's gonna be hard. Unless I just have an extra card and then I use something bigger for the actual monsters or something. I don't know. That's a problem that has to be solved. It is what it is. I can't get around it if I want this game the way it's working. But that's going to come down to the design side. That's going to restrict what I can do with the game. From there, the player actions are pretty cut and dry. Item. Okay, so I did change that. Transformations would be under monster cards. Relics, items, and strategic. So I'm gonna change that to strategic. Then transformations, while counted as player actions, have monster card layout and no effect. Oh, there is the time. I'm gonna finish running through this and then do a wrap up and call it there. So we got the strategic relics. Here, resource cards, information, name, picture, resource value. And possible flavor text on a lot of cards. We'll see how it works out.
monster ability and run cards, name, cost, resource value, necessary typing, necessary attributes, type, offensive, defensive, support, and effect, which can be instant or multi-round. So that is actually pretty good. There is a lot of details that need to be hammered out, such as typing, attributes, and transformation. Like I said, though, the game can be tested without thematic things, so it'll be like transformational family 1, transformational family 2. The attribute requirements will be, I don't know, attribute square, attribute family. And that's how I'm gonna design the game, and I'll choose the thematics later, as it goes on. And same with the typing. Typing will be like rock, paper, scissors, lizard spot, for better lack of better. So when I'm designing it, that's what I'm going through, and I'll hammer down the thematics of it as it goes. And that's probably what I'll do for prototype monsters and trying to build sets and stuff, before I get too thematically. So tonight I got a lot of work to do yet off stream. I have to figure out cocktail and how that works, and how I can start setting up cards and groups. I got to do a little bit of studying to get that to work, and whatnot. And hopefully tomorrow we can start looking at setting out prototype card layouts and start coming up and brainstorming some ideas for types of actions and types of teams. We got set up 2 decks with 4 monsters and multiple cards in between, probably 4 relics each deck. We'll have to figure out the structure. I don't know what's going to be good. You can balance it out, but until you sit down and play, you don't know the best way to set it up, especially for something that's, conceptual at best. Anyway, has been a very productive session. Made a lot of forward progress. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this if you made it all the way to the end. And I hope you have a wonderful night, and hope you join me again. Thank you.